Benny Big Gun here. This is going to be a complete disassembly and reassembly of the Colt 1851 Navy revolver. And this is a replica. This is made by Pietra in Italy. And so I'm going to do a complete disassembly for you and reassembly to show you how it goes. Let's say you've been shooting your gun and you need to clean it. You can just take off the barrel and cylinder, but you're only painting part of the picture here, you're only cleaning part of the gun. Inside here, and in the grip area, everything all inside, it really collects with burnt powder residue. And it needs to be cleaned occasionally. So, let's do this. Now what you're going to need is basically 2 screwdrivers of this size, and here's a smaller one. These are flathead screwdrivers. And if you're taking your gun apart for the first time, you're going to need a brass hammer or a plastic hammer and a brass punch. But if you've taken your gun apart a few times, this won't be a problem. It's going to be probably a long video. I'm going to try and keep it as brief as possible. So let's get at it. First, you're going to have to take out this punch right here, and you're going to have to normally push it down and hammer it out. But it's been taken apart a few times. Mine's become pretty loose. So all you need to do is you need to tap several times, and then you can just pull it out. Put that somewhere safe. And I've got this little mug for small parts. Now what you're going to do is you're going to have to pull this off. Or if it's really stiff from after shooting, you can cock the hammer and the cylinder will come forward. You can take it out that way. Now, since this is going to be a complete disassembly, and you also, by the way, before you take out the pin, you might have to loosen this screw right here as well. I don't need to do that. It's nice. It already is nice and loose. Now, what you're going to need to do is you're going to want to take off the ramrod and the rod right here as well. So how this is going to work is you can do this here, and you can take out this screw right here with this screwdriver. And you can unscrew the screw by hand a little bit. Then you have your screw. Be sure to put your screws somewhere safe. Put your screws in a mug, somewhere safe. You can remove the ramrod and the ram. It also gets pretty dirty when you're shooting. And as well, you can take off this screw right here. Just give it a good twist. Now, a little tip on when you're unscrewing screws. Put some pressure on the screw while taking it out. Don't just, turn it, because you're going to end up damaging the screw head. Give it a good push and turn. You got that right here. Your small parts. Put your small parts in a mug. Out the way. Don't lose them. They're very important. Barrel. Out the way. Hammer on half cock. Pull off your cylinder. Now what I do not have is the tool to unscrew the nipples. There's a tool for it. You just put the tool on and you twist off the nipples, they unscrew, and then you can clean your cylinder much more easier. But I don't have that tool, but if you do, you just have to unscrew them, and that's it. Now, coming to the main part right here, the frame. The first thing you're going to want to do is take your smaller screwdriver for these smaller screws right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take off this entire tang right here, the back strap almost. And the first thing is what we're going to do. We're going to put some pressure with your thumb on here. Put your screwdriver in place. I don't know how much of them getting on camera. It's kind of hard doing this working around a tripod. We're going to want to unscrew the screw. unscrew it part way. Do the rest by hand. You screw down, so you can see. Why I wanted to put pressure on that is you can see it's slightly come forward. The trigger guard has. So now you're going to want to take out these two back screws right here. If I can see where to put the screwdriver, this will be a lot easier. Okay. Let's get the second one taken apart. Second screw almost out. I can't screw it by hand yet. Now this gun here has already been cleaned before the video, so this makes it all this a little easier. Now your grip will come off, and then you can just remove the tang, just like so. Now you have your grips, which I'll set over here, and then you got the tang over here. Now this here isn't dirt. It's a bit of discoloration because I had not cleaned this here for a very long time. Actually, I bought the gun used. The owner hadn't cleaned it, and so it became like this. It became a little discolored, in my opinion. I call it a bit of discoloration. Now we have this right here. Now, little recommendation: you take your screws out of the frame, put them back in. When it comes to the frame right here, with screws you can. Like this, just like so. Don't really tighten them down, just put them in a little snug. Why I say to do that is so you don't lose them and you don't get them mixed up from one from another. Or you could just put them individually into separate places where you know where they are. It's up to you. I'm going to do this part off camera real quick. Alright, just put the screws back in real quick. There's two at the back there. And the one underneath here on the trigger guard, which holds the grips in place. That way you keep track of your screws. And yeah, it keeps them from getting lost. Now, next step is you're going to want to take off your mainspring. This is the spring, allows you to cock the hammer and shoot. Now, what I recommend is don't pull the hammer too far. If I can get it there, is putting the hammer on the non-cocked position. That way you have less tension on the spring, in my opinion. That way you can take the screw out and put it back in much easier. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to you're also going to put pressure on the spring so it doesn't just fly out. So what I recommend is holding it. Holding it. Put it somewhere you know where it is. Actually, take the spring out. Spring where you know where it is. Put the screw back in the hole. That way you don't lose it. Now we got that part done. That was just the mainspring. Get a good look at that. These can break, so you sometimes do need replacing. And now, you're going to want to take off your trigger guard. It's just 3 screws, one here, and one there. And you're going to need your small screwdriver for that one. And you're just going to want to take out the screws real quick. And mind, this is a little bit more difficult behind a tripod. There we go. One screw. A screw for the left side. Now the screw for the right side. little screw there wants to be difficult, which can happen sometimes. It does help if you have a magnetic tipped screwdriver, but if you don't, you can manage just fine. So let's put this one on the left, this one on the right, so I can put them back in place. Now you want to take your middle screw out, that little screw right there. Give it a little bit of pressure and give it a good twist. There we go. Now your trigger guard will come right off, nicely like that. Of course this is a bit of discoloration here, but when I first took it apart it was so dirty, and it was really, really dirty. Once again, put the screws back in. It's up to you if you want to do this or not. Just like so. Now, you get to have a good look at your interior here. Now, if you're a new person taking guns apart, I recommend you take a couple of pictures so you know where everything goes. Inside here you can see there's the trigger spring, and you got the trigger right here and everything. Now here you're going to have 3 screws. You're going to have the bottom right for the trigger, the one on the left, bottom left for the bolt, and then you're going to have your hammer, this one here for your hammer, and your hand. So without further ado, and you also got one under here which has your main trigger spring under tension. Without further ado, preferably put your finger over here, give it a good twist. This screw can be very, very hard to undo. Like I said, magnetic tip screwdriver really helps. I'm going to go put that somewhere where I know where it is. I'll put that one in my mug. And then you can twist out your spring. Now, don't do what I did the first time around. Don't pull the trigger when this is loosened, because the spring will go flying right out. Rather put your finger over it, you know, like so. Just put your finger over it and you're loosening it to make sure nothing flies out of there. Put this somewhere. Now, so let's put the hammer back there. What you're going to want to do is take out your trigger, which is this little screw right here. Take out the trigger, loosen the screw, long screw, take out your trigger. This is your trigger. So when you put it back together, you see this little type engraving right here, where the small part right here where it's a little bit milled out. That is where your trigger spring goes. And the little hole there is where the screw goes. Put that somewhere out the way. Put the screw back in place. Oh no, you can't this time. This time you can't put the screw back in place, so I'm going to put the screw somewhere where I know where it is. Yes, you can. There we go. The screw's a little bit back in place. I was fooling myself there for a minute. Now I don't know how well you can see in here. Yes, you can see it. That little grey thingamajig right there, that's going to be your bolt. Your bolt is this right here. It's what holds your cylinder in place on these little grooves right here. So what you're going to want to do is undo it. Take out the screw, same screw. And then sometimes it's easier if you have a small screwdriver handy to just shake it out a little bit like so. And that's it. This is the bolt. Put that somewhere where you know where it is. Somewhere safe preferably. And now what we have here is the hammer and the hand. Now the hand is this little thing right here. See that sticking out right there? That's the hand. That's what's going to turn your cylinder. On these little pins right here, that's what turns your cylinder. You're going to want to take that out too. Apologies for the background noise. Just take that out. Hold your hammer in place for now. Take out your screw. Basically the same screw as these, just bigger. Now you're gonna have to bring it down like so and pull it out. This is a two-part system right here. You just pull this out. You have your hand and your hammer. Put that where you know where it is, and put your hammer where you know where it is. And that's all is to it to taking this apart. Now it is in pieces. We're going to put it back together. You see the little bolt in there? That's the screw going across. And that's basically it. This is all one piece right here. Cleaning recommendation. You can use solvents. You can just clean with gun oil. But what I like to do is I like to take all these parts and I like to warm some water up to not too hot. As long as you can put your hand in the water. It's not too hot. You can put some degreaser in there, some degreasing soap. And you just dump your parts in there. You let them soak for a little while. You take them out. And you take a toothbrush or a wire brush or a cleaning brush. You scrub out all the parts. Everything. And including your barrel, by the way. You can put your barrel in there too. It's what I usually do. I put my barrel in there. As you can see, the barrel comes out really nice and clean. And so you put your barrel in there, you put everything in there, and you give it a good clean. So I can see if you can see that. There we go. Comes out nice and clean. Cylinder as well. If you have the nipples out, it works much better. If you don't, you just take a Q-tip and cleaning brush and clean out each and every one of the chambers and everything. Just put everything in there. The tang, mainspring, everything. Once you're done, you scrub it all out. You can still use solvent if you want. You can use anything you want. Dry it off. Oil it back up with gun oil. That's what I usually do. It's just my way of doing things. You can do things how you like. And that's it. You do as you like. It's just my opinion. Now, let's pull all this stuff back together for you all once you're done cleaning it. Now, once again, you're going to need the frame. You're going to need your hammer. So I've got everything right here in a pot. You're going to need your hammer. You're going to need your hand. So what do we have here? We have the bolt. And we're going to want your hand. Now this part can be a little tricky. It's a little tricky to do. And the best way to do it is to put it back on here and go backwards. Now in here, I don't know if you can see it. There's a little hole. I don't know if you can see it. Little notch in the side there. Yeah, you can see it. Little notch in there. Now that goes all the way through here. That's where your hand has to go. Now you wanna. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do this on camera, but you wanna just kinda get it in there. This is probably the most difficult part for me. Is getting the hand back in place. So there's a little groove in there. Slide that back in. Actually, It's actually quite easy if you just use this groove right here. It's cut out, and there you go. That's actually easy. I actually figured out something new for myself. You want to just guide it in. I can do it myself. There we go. Just guide it in. I'm getting this on camera, I hope. And back in we go. So now you can see your hand moving, I hope. Yeah, I can see it moving. Don't know about you, but I see the hand. There we go. The hand's moving in that. I don't know how. I'm sorry about the poor lighting. There we go. See the hand moving. And that means that is back in place. Now what you're going to want to do is secure that with its screw. Just wind the screw back in place. I can do this properly. What am I doing wrong? If you do get stuck, you just have to go step by step and look what you're doing wrong. And here's what I'm doing wrong. I'm not lining it up properly. As you can see there, I got it now lined up. Important to line it up well. So you can get your screw back in place without too much trouble. And just line this up. Just like everything, you can take it apart pretty easy, but putting it back together is always a little more difficult. Okay, I got it all lined up. I just have to screw it back in. Pretty easy once you get it all lined up. Just want to screw it back in place. Not too tight. Tight enough though. Everything functions correctly. There we go. And here's what I meant by, you can see the hand moving. You can see it in there. When you move the hammer, it moves around. Now, we just have to go reverse. Let's take the bolt. Here's the bolt. You want to take your bolt. You want to put it in place. You can see there's a little groove in there. This little small groove right here. Let me magnify it for you. There we go, a small groove. You've got the screw hole on the left and the groove in the middle. Now, this little part right here has to go in there. So, like this. Just want to get it in there. And voila. Set in there nicely. You want to get its screw. You want to leave it like that. You want to get its screw. You want to tighten it down. And there you go. You want to take your trigger. You have the screws in the frame. You're going to want to take the screws back out. This one right here. I've put it back in. Do not get mixed up. You're going to want to find your trigger in this pot of parts right here. You're going to want to find your trigger. There's the trigger. Now you're going to want to bring it back in there. I want to line that up nicely. Alright, so now the way to do this, I apologize if there's any background noise. Now the way to do this is to put your trigger. This is a part that's going to be a bit complicated for you all to see, but if you have your own, I'm sure you'll see it. Now there's a little on the hammer there. There's like a little groove. Do not know how well you can see this. I'm going to try and get some extra light here, just to show you all. This is going to be a little bit complicated. I haven't got free hands. So, let's try and do this here. No, it's not working. But anyway, let's put that over there. Between the hammer here, should have kind of showed you all this before, but in there you're gonna have like a little kind of a step groove type deal. Now your hammer is gonna have to go in that little tiny groove. Now, you just put that here. Let me just do this myself. It's gonna have to go between this groove right here. It can be kind of tricky sometimes. Now the way to tell if it's working, oops, I apologize there, the camera moving, is if you move the trigger and your hammer is moving with it. So when you got that in there, you're going to move your trigger, your hammer is going to move with it, and when it's all lined up, you're set to go. So I'm going to quickly line it all up off camera because it's going to be a little bit difficult to do it. Okay, I got it all lined up. Now it's time to screw it all back together right here, the whole assembly. Now let's just do that real quick. Let's verify everything's working. Now the trigger should be able to move, and it is. It's a good sign. If it's moving with the hammer, like so. Another good way to see if it's working is to cock the hammer back. You'll see one button it forward, and then pull the trigger and bring it forward. You can see the trigger is working. Let's bring it back onto cocked position. And then pull the trigger and bring it forward. You can see everything's working nicely here. Now it's time for the spring. Now that is the little groove I showed you earlier. Now the spring is going to go in between that little groove I showed you earlier on the trigger. That's where it's going to go. And then you're going to have to, this is going to be a little tricky. This can be tricky anyway. If I can do this here properly. There we go. You can see, I'm holding the spring and you see it's got, now got a little spring action in the trigger. That's a good sign. Now you're going to have to screw it down. Now let me just go ahead and find that screw. Got that screw right here. Now, whatever you do, to be careful. Now, if you have a magnetic tip screwdriver, you can just set it on top of there nicely, and then just go ahead and line it all up to make sure it's all lined up, and just take it and screw it in, just like so. Makes things a lot easier if you have a magnetic tip screwdriver. Just screw it in, you're going to feel a little bit of resistance, and it's going to go hard, tighten it up a little bit, and that's it. It's going to go, you can be able to cock the hammer, half cock, cock, and then you can do that. You're going to have a nice spring action here going on. Now the next step is to be putting the all the interior parts are back together, so you're going to want to put the trigger guard back on. Trigger guard. If you have the screws in, you're going to have to take them back off, like I do right here. Put them exactly where you know, so left, right, and middle. Just like so. You're going to want to take this trigger guard. I'm going to line it all up. I want to do that nicely right here. Line it up. So left screw I'm going to start with first. Back left. I'm going to take your screwdriver. I want to sit it on just on top, if you can do. If not, if you can't set it on top, put it in manually and then screw it in with a screwdriver. For some reason, obviously haven't lined it up properly, which could explain it. So let's do that again. We all make, there we go, it's in there properly now. We all make mistakes when we do things like this, it's just normal. And then the screw's going to go in nicely. Once one is in, you can get the others in. Just going to put it in snug. Don't tighten it down a lot just yet, because you don't want the alignment to slip out of place. Once you've got the two back screws in, the front's going to align already pretty well. Just do that. I see. Don't know how much as you get on camera. Just front screw. Put that in like so. Now you can tighten them up a little, not too much, so you don't want to break your screw heads by over tightening, because if you screw a screw over tight, you're going to slip and then you're going to damage your screw head, and that's not good. Now, next step, mainspring. The main spring right here. Take your screw out of your frame if you've done so. Like that. Now you have a little groove right here on the spring. You're gonna have a groove like so. Now on the hammer you have little ball right here which turns, and that's gonna roll up and down on your mainspring. You're gonna wanna line it up. Now this is the part which can be a little tricky sometimes, because you're gonna have to line it up just right. Gonna have to hold it. You're basically gonna need 3 hands for this procedure. You're basically gonna need 3 hands. You're gonna have to, and then you're gonna have to somehow get the screw back in. Without losing it, without having it all fly out. So let's just reverse this a little bit here. Let's just apologize for the camera moving. So let's just do this. Apologise for the background noise there. So like I said, this is a little bit tricky sometimes. Just got to hold that with a lot of pressure. Now you're going to have to somehow get your main screw back in. actually I got a different idea. Even I learn as I go with things, you know. I've actually got a different idea which I'm going to try here on camera in front of you all. I'm going to try, see if this works. And look at that, actually works. What I did quickly off camera is I put the screw in a little bit, and now you can twist your main spring in place, and look at that, that just worked really nice. Even I learn as I go, as you can see there. Now I'm just going to tighten this down off camera real quick. So now you got your spring back end, you can